to basics. Merry New Year, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is straight, die-hard, genuine, authentic high school. This is how the story goes. I went to public utilities and tell them disconnect them facilities, 'cause me want them. I tried to contact the ombudsman, but never in office. I'm going to file me an injunction on public service. But every time a heavy rain fall, by me don't have no current at all. They spoil my TV, they spoil my fridge, they nearly kill me with low voltage. Now before they make me a lunatic, I'm going back to basic. I'm going and get a flambeau and lamp with a wick. I'm going back to basic. Call me fans and I call me friends to let them know that if they have a message to send, tell Tempo. And if they come home and they see me, tell me neighbor, or get a pen and a writing pad and write a letter. 'Cause DSPT does make me weep. One of the days when old talk was cheap, I make a phone call to Talbaro and I get a phone bill to Mexico. Oh my lad, before they kill me and kill me quick, I'm going back to basic. A piece of malling and two climpan wouldn't do the trick. I'm going back to basic. I went and buy me a motor car for my own comfort, 'cause I can't take no more torture waiting on transport. But all them potholes and all them bumps, me car ain't able until they invent a car jump. I will travel. I beg the Lord to please put a hand, touch the hearts of the spare parts man. I used to have a raise in the bank, now every cent gone in me gas tank. Now I prefer roller with piece of sticker. I'm going back to basic. Or buy a 3-speed bike, go in chick chick chick. I'm going back to basic. Now the only competent source that really working is when you can't pay your bills on time. They come cutting. Incompetence and disregard, ain't no humor. 'Cause the situation is sad for the poor consumer. The word water doesn't give me gripe. I ask for water, then give me pipe. I can't even get me clothes to wash. Me toilet full and can't even flush. Now they make me condemn me toilet bowl going back to basic. And now we're digging a latrine hole. Going back to basic. Yes! You like it? I do. Trinidad Rio. Trinidad Rio. Back to basics. Yesterday, I went to the store to buy a cooler, then get me Indian partner next door to make a chula. I buy a donkey cart from Ramdeen to make a stagecoach, then put some safran in my latrine to kill the cockroach. I buy a posy made in Hong Kong, the only silver posy in town. Well, if you see the latrine I built, here is the cleanest one on the hill. All down inside the hole and around the walls. I always splitting. You know why? To make sure cockroach ain't bite me. Trinidad Rio. Rio. Back to basics. Long time me, Gypsy and Kokro. Back in the earlys, we used to go downtown after show, pick up the ladies, window shop, take them along, buy them a roti, then find the cheapest hotel in town and make a pakoti. But time changes and so do we. So put that down in Kaiso history. But if you should do the same today, it's like a game, a Russian roulette. So now before one of them get me sick, I'm going back to basic. I prefer sit down in a corner and going back to basic. Prefer roller with piece of sticker. I'm going back to basic. Buy a 3-speed bike, go in chick, chick, chick. I'm going back to basic. Now the only competent source that really working when you can't pay your bills on time. They come cutting. Incompetence and disregard. Ain't no humor. Cause the situation is sad for the poor consumer. The word water doesn't give me gripe. I ask for water, then give me pipe. I can't even get me clothes to wash. Me toilet full and can't even flush. Now they make me condemn me toilet bowl. I'm going back to basic. I call me fans and I call me friends to let them know that if they have a message to send, tell Tembo. And if they come home and they see me, tell tell me neighbor, or get a pen and a writing pad and write a letter. Cause DSPT doesn't make me weep. Gone are the days when old talk was cheap. I make a phone call to Talbaro and I get a phone bill to Mexico. Oh my lad, before they kill me and kill me quick, I'm going back to basic. A piece of marling and two flimpan wouldn't do the trick. I'm going back to basic. I went and buy me a motor car for my own comfort, cause I can't take no more torture waiting on transport. But all them potholes and all them bumps, me car ain't able until they invent a car jump. I will travel. I beg the Lord to please put a hand, touch the hearts of this spare parts man. I used to have a raise in the bank, now every cent gone in me gas tank. Now I prefer roller with visa sticker. I'm going back to basic. Or buy a 3-speed bike, go in chick. I'm going.
Trinidad, Daniel, Rio are going back to basic. Are going back to basics until they invent a car that jumps. So are going back to basic. I prefer to roll a tire with 2 pieces of stick. Boy, I look. I tell you all, this is the greatest music in the world. They got nowhere in the world create a music like this. Serious calypso, the melodies of our society. And Trinidad Rio is singing this, I think 40 years ago. You know, we still, at least in Guyana, we still dealing with the pothole. We still dealing with the water problem. We still dealing with all the issues that the calypsonian is speaking there about. But he's doing it with a lot of humor, which is the Caribbean spirit. I mean, we laugh. We like to laugh. Bye. We are a people who laugh at seriousness. But as the philosophers will tell you, behind that laugh is a serious blade. As old people would say, all skin teeth na laugh. But there's the Calypsonian talking about the problems in the society, the infrastructural problems. I mean, Trinidad Rio could have been talking about Guyana. We just opened a big fancy bridge. One night, by the next morning, the whole tongue clog up. What the use of the bridge and the car? Really serious music. I think it is the greatest musical genre in the world. And when you think about the origins of calypso, certainly it's on both sides of the Atlantic, because it came across with our foreparents across the Middle Passage. In West Africa, it was called kaiso, the call and response, and our foreparents brought it over here, and they use it as a weapon of struggle on the plantation. You know, they banned calypso at one time. It was banned. You couldn't sing kaiso. They banned it. The colonial masters banned it because they found out that it was a language of resistance, where our people were using the kaiso in the tents to really organize and rebuke the colonial authorities. Of course, they were doing it in a language that the colonial masters didn't understand. And that language is, of course, Creolese, when I teach calypso, because I did a comparative course called Music as Political Discourse, Reggae, Calypso, and Hip Hop, in which I use the text of the music to talk about the politics. And the students, of course, in America, they will get hip hop because it's American born music. They get reggae. For all the patois, reggae is really sung in standard English. Man to man is so unjust. Children, you're going, who you gonna trust, you know? English language, because it's a new music. It's 20th century music. Reggae emerged in the early 1950s as ska. So it's a relatively music, and so it utilizes the school language. But the students would always have a problem with calypso, because calypso is done in West Indian language. Yeah, are going back to basic. You know, in reggae they're going to say, "I am going back to basics." You know, that kind of stuff. And so that is why we refer to calypso as the mother music of the English-speaking Caribbean. Reggae is the child of calypso, because reggae is a fusion of calypso, folk music from Jamaica, Pocomania music, and rhythm and blues, because the Jamaicans used to hear the radio at night coming from Miami, and they would hear rhythm and blues. And so they fused rhythm and blues with the Jamaican folk music, Pocomania, and calypso. And so it's really a world music in that sense, reggae. And that's why Black Americans could hear something in it. Even white Americans could hear something in reggae, you know. If you're African, you hear the African beat, the drum, the bongo drum. In Trinidad, they call it in Jamaica, they call it the buru drum, which is the heartbeat of reggae music. The putu, 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 putu. The drum is the key in reggae music. And so reggae is the child of calypso. Calypso is the mother music. Really, Africa brought over the Middle Passage and then germinate again in the slave plantation, and using the language of the folk, meaning patois, or as we would say in Guyana, Creolese. And you know, they've experimented with it. In Barbados, they had something called spooge. Dr. Vincent Adams is here with us tonight. You're going to remember spooge, the Merry Men. Tom Charles and the Syncopators, they had experimented here in Guyana with something called the boom, which really was a fusion of calypso, comfort music, and a little bit what we call oldies, rhythm and blues, the kind of boom. Barbados moved from the spooge to the raga soca, as you would notice, and Trinidad went to soca, which is the soul of calypso. So the music keeps evolving all the time, but the essence of the calypso is storytelling. Every calypso tells a story. Monday, she gone for cane. Tuesday, she gone back again. Wednesday, she got for cane again. You know, the double attach, telling the story of the person who, I guess, you know, is sex. And sometimes we uppity people, you know, oh, dirty music. But our music, folk music, is always about what the folk are doing, and they have sex, and so they sing about sex. Kwekwe music, again brought by our foreparents. In Africa, West Africa, was called kakali, and by the time it come down, it become kwekwe. But kwekwe music is initiation. It's sex. In the old days, back in Africa, it used to be a whole month before the wedding. They every night, because they had to initiate the bride and the bridegroom into marriage life. And so sex, tonight or last night, give me a little bit more. Are we gonna come tonight all night? Give me a little bit more. Tonight or last night, are we gonna come tonight all night? It's sexual initiation. And so, the uptown redskin, as we would say, people, used to turn up their nose at Quebec. We had this story here in Buxton. Woman dead and his son, he left the village and he turned police. So he come back and them chap wrap it up and them a play Nancy. And Nancy's story not get bad word. And them attack was sex and them use the bad word, clap you so and so on. He said, what kind of law is this? He called the police station that he was assigned to and tell the police come and lock up them chap, because he said them chap behave bad, them a cuss up here bad. He had left the village and had no sense of the folk. Really, very thing. We as small boy, brother, you see, don't cuss. Brother Kwayana, he not cuss. But you go, and Nancy's story, you go quick. And so, when we small, we take the opportunity for cuss in front of Kwayana. The one time you could have cuss, because you can't say you're cuss. Long time, when Kwayana walk in, and then by a gambler the road corner, nicking your mother. Good evening, brother, you see Jambo. But the one time your uncle says so is when you're playing quick, where you're playing Nancy, which is about the folk. Good evening to all of you all tonight, and we are back to Friday night. It's always that night, and it always used to be Dr. Vincent Adams' night. But all of us after September 1st went into our period of mourning, our period of introspection, as the big shot academics will call it. But them people in the village say, that time's a mourn, we mourn. This is like if your mama dead, your daddy dead. But we are slowly getting out of that as human beings. I mean, we have been down that road before. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep moving on, to quote from a calypso by Winston Gypsy Peters. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off. And I think we are doing that. We are much more comfortable now in recognizing that it's not the end of the world. So there are lots to talk about. Today was high drama in Georgetown, as they would say. High drama in Georgetown, Guyana. Coming out of Sunday night with a big bomb blast. And before the Sunday night, we had the last weekend where they shove the Justice Cummings out, and we had that political drama. So lots to talk about tonight with Dr. Adams, and he hasn't been on for a while. So he's fresh like a rose. He had enough time to cry, mourn, and lie down, sleep. And, here we are, almost 2 months after the September 4th election. Still trying to make sense of what's going on, but the world moves on, the country moves on, and here we are. Good evening to you, Dennis Booker. It's good to see Danette Booker. Danette, man, see Danette for a long time. Danette don't come to boxing no more. Danette don't say, I'm living in Pennsylvania. She said, Dr. Hines, Danette joining from PA. She playing big shot for me. She's joining from PA. Danette, we miss you in Buxton, and you must come. You stay away too long. And by the time you come, according to Mojo, and then by the time you come, you get clear, because you're there in the cold in PA, Philadelphia, PA. Good evening. Who's this? Nejo is watching from NYC. You see me talking about? They're in New York. NYC, New York City. Man, you can't stop we Guyanese and West Indian people, you know. We bad like a whole bag of dark free. Good night to you, Quasi. I'm seeing some old friends. We made it this week. Yes, Beverly, you know, I like the gaff thing, you know. Yeah, you couldn't grow up in Christianborg or Buxton or Golden Grove, Anns Grove, Pleasance, wherever, and gaff there all wrong you. Because when them big man a gaff is real gaff. And when them big lady a gaff, you say, they must sit down, them attack name, them a thing, but it's all the gaff. And we come from a culture. We are now calling it in university oral culture. You know, they get big words for it now. But that's how we pass down our heritage, by gaffing. And so, you know, I mean, gaff is very much part of our culture. Good evening to everyone. Good evening to my villagers in Buxton. I don't forget you all, but you all know that I is Buxtonian, but as you all would say, I is also international. So I got to give people my peas, and it can't be Buxton all the time. Good evening to Orrin Newton, who is causing a lot of trouble with a lot of things. And but it's good. He's a part owner of the program. Good evening to you in Mackenzie, Wismar, Christianborg, all over. Good evening. Look, my friend, my Congo friend, Lynette, Congo Creole. Hey, Congo Creole. Lynette, what you do, girl? Oh, Congo people, serious people, but they not make joke. Congo people. It's good to see that we still have aspects of the culture. Of course, the culture is colliding with the changes in society, but it's still there. I always say, you know, when I go out, these days I don't get out too often, but when I take a little outing and go out, to see young people in their 20s dancing oldies, it warms my heart. Because this music is oldies music. But if you see how them little by the foot, it's sweet. And in many regards, they're better than our generation. Because, you know, they get the soca rhythm and the dancehall rhythm, and they bring that rhythm to the oldies. So the foot kick out and spin wrong and go wrong more than with this. You know, all part of the culture. And without the culture, we are nothing. Marcus Garvey said that. A people without a culture is like a boat without navigation. Marcus Garvey visited Guyana in this month of October. We're still in October 31st, so the last day. But we're still in October. He visited here in 1937 when he made a trip from Nova Scotia in Canada right down to Guyana, and he made stops. You know, it was, I forget the name of the ship, but it was a famous ship, and it would stop in St. Lucia for a day, and he would stop there, make a speech, and then stop in Trinidad. And then when he come down to Guyana, they board the dock for about 3 days. So he ended up spending about 3 days in Guyana, 1937, October. And then on his way back up, he stopped in some other place, Barbados, and so on. Was to be his last trip through the Caribbean, because he passed away tragically in 1940 at the age of 57. He died really young. The great Marcus Messiah Garvey. And Garvey said, of course, many things. You know, the culture is important. And, you know, some of my detractors on the other side of the political divide laughing and saying, David Hines play calypso, you play thing, young black people now listen to them thing. And they want to beat even your culture out of you. But thank God, you gone out them by a plane, the one man band Stitchy and Super Ray and them say, carry me back and me move my country. The same, it's now in the dance hall. It's now in the dance hall. And those on the other side who know nothing about African culture believe that young people now listen to them kind of music. All young people do is take the music from the kwekwe ring and carry them in the dance hall. What do they know of African culture? Only African culture know? I'm paraphrasing the great C.L.R. James, who asked, what do they know of cricket? Who only cricket knows? Dr. Adams gonna like that he's a cricket man. And people been asking about the cricket show. We getting to restart. Dr. Vincent Adams.
Good night, Dr. Hines, and welcome again to our devoted listeners, Friday night listeners. we know that they make a lot of sacrifices of their Friday night to come and say they could go. There are lots of places to go hang out on Friday nights to relax, but so we're thankful that they could find the time to.
Yes, and when we see Matty too long, you say, God bless me eyesight. God bless me eyesight. Me and see you long.
Yep. But I'm glad to be back. And like you said, we've had a what is it? Close to 2 months now to have an introspection or to mourn, if you will. But it's Dr. Hines, and it's not so much mourning about ourselves. You and I are okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we've lived our lives. We still got a lot more to go. However, we are more worried about the younger, the population who may not have the kind of opportunity of freedom that we had. We never grew up in a country that was rich, but we never knew that we were poor because we had that freedom to express ourselves and the opportunity to advance ourselves. But so that's what I fear most. Of obviously the people who are well off or who've got connections to the government, they're rejoicing. But is that majority of the population that is poor? More than half of the population is below the age of 26. So that's the population that I worry about. And but we will keep fighting for them.
We will keep fighting. And one of the things I like about our program and our viewers, and something that I learned from Walter Rodney and Quiana. Walter Rodney said, when he went to Jamaica and they didn't want him to teach African history in the university, he went to the street corners and started to teach African history there. And he found when he went to the street corners that people were teaching him African history, especially the Rastafarians who were very much in touch with African history. And, we talked about the ship that Marcus Garvey traveled on, or when he came in 1937, and somebody give you the answer there right away, the Federal Maple. There were actually two ships, the Federal Maple and the Federal Palm. They were given by the Canadian government as gifts to the West Indies Federation. As we know, the Federation from 58 to 62. But long before the Federation, those ships had been plying, and Marcus Garvey came on the Federal Maple. Thank you very much. And and that's why I like doing this, because when you get stumped and you can't remember something, within minutes, somebody on this program will tell you the answer. Good evening to you, Don Sullivan. Good evening to you. Doctor, let's go back a bit, because we had the outcome of the 2025 election, And of course, all of us agree that the system, the electoral system, was rigged before the election. And so the election could not have been fair. It might have been free, but certainly not fair. But when we get beyond that, we still have to contend with an outcome, a result of an election that really shook up the nation. Not in terms of what happened, because we had a vibrant third party in the 1960s in the form of the United Force. In 1961 and 64 would have gotten up to about 14% of the vote. In the 1970s, we had the advent of the WPA. It didn't get to contest election in its heyday, but if you judge by the crowds it was pulling on the streets, you could say that it functioned as a powerful third party. And then we had the AFC coming on speed. First time out, 5 seats. Second time, I think 7 seats. So third parties are not uncommon in Guyana. And if you go back to the United Force, some Africans voted for the United Force. Some Indian elite voted for the United Force. We come true to the WPA. The WPA also had multi-ethnic crowds, but there's no denying that when it went to places like Linden and Buxton, it drew larger crowds than in the East Indian areas. And when the AFC came to office, its first outing, with Raphael Trotman as the presidential candidate, most of its votes came from the PNC base, African Guyanese, to the point where it reduced the PNC to 34%, which at that time was the lowest electoral returns for the PNC. And so we come to 2025, and again we see a third party coming on the scene. And again, African Guyanese voting more than other ethnic groups for that third party. As Vincent Alexander said here last night, the big story is not so much a third party doing well. It is the volume, the large number of votes that it got. Got more votes than the UF would have gotten, than the AFC would have gotten. So it's the quantity of votes that is the story, and not the fact of a third party. But reflect, because everybody has been trying to figure out what caused that split among African Guyanese of their votes, and the fact that Indian Guyanese did not split their votes. They held strong to the party that they have always voted for. Over to you.
Well, and I like the word magnitude. I agree with that. But let's go back to basics.
Back to basics.
Back to basics. The communities that voted for the AFC, well, not for the AFC, for the PNC, especially the Black community, and I always use Linden as a gauge. The PNC is not a party without that Region 10 community. But guess what has happened in those community, in the Amerindian community again? This is where the Azaruddin party did well, in the Amerindian community and in the Black communities of Region 10. And to me anyway, is guess why? Those are the communities that suffered most under this regime. So they're saying here, they're looking for a way out. And upon, over the decades, even I've got to admit, even under our short term, I think we, you and I discussed this several times. I think we dropped the ball in terms of paying attention to our community. Like when the PPP gets into office, I'll never forget. We in Linden, we were calling for, and this is going back in history, but I've got to put it into context. We were calling for a University of Guyana, faculty, especially in mining, but we were calling for a part of the University of Guyana to be established in Linden, even going way back under the PNC administration. Never happened. We had kids who had to travel from Linden all the way to Georgetown. A lot of them did not go to university because they couldn't afford to do it. Guess the PPP came into office after 1992. The first thing they did, guess what they did, Doctor? Establish a campus on the quarantine. But I use that as just one example of where the communities that supported the PNC, or the disadvantaged communities, Linden, for example, or Region 10, and the Amerindian communities who were left behind decided, well, this here looks like an opportunity. And if you notice how Azardine campaigned, he showed up at these meetings. He didn't say much, but he listened to people, and people can see that he's listening, he's taking notes, and he's even used a lot of his own money to give people like housing. You always ask, what are your problems, and a lot of people who had some personal problems, he fixed it by giving homes and that type of stuff. So that's what the appeal was. And the other thing is, the guy is young, so he lived in this generation where more than half of the population is below the age of 26. So he appealed to them, and I think that was the difference. It was, to me, it was people, because people always wanted a third party. By the way, like at least in my time, as you recall, going back to you mentioned some of those. The WPA was a very popular party, and here comes the AFC. In his very first outing, I think it got 7 seats or 8 seats or something within that vicinity. So the people are always looking for that third party, and as things got worse, these communities that suffered most, both under, they're not. I don't think they, like in Linden, because I can tell you, I've even heard this when we were in power, that they were being left behind, and I think that people saw this here. What do they have to lose? You remember in our politics, what do they have to lose? And I think they throw their votes behind this Azardine guy. And it was, let me tell you, it was a very passionate support. I remember looking at the videos, and even when I talked to the folks from Linden, and when he went up there and he was walking in the real poor neighborhoods of Linden, going up the Wahafman, there were women who were coming out, and you gauge your politics by the women, looking for where the woman, because remember they're the ones who handle the household, and with the kids, they're closer to their kids and what's emotionally, and there were women who would come running out of their homes in their nightgowns, Dr. Hines. I never, when I saw running out and saying, this is our, they were marching down the street, this is our next president. It was so enthusiastic that it caught my attention even before the election. And so even though in terms of the magnitude, I thought he would have done, I always thought that he would have done well, except that I thought he would have brought second in Linden. But he had twice in Region 10, he had twice the number of votes that the APNU had. Twice. He got over 10,000 votes. APNU got 5,000 or something. And of course the PPP got 4,000. They increased their numbers by, I guess, just over 1,000 from the last time. But of course, the PPP votes, you always got a question that based on what happened before the voting.
And then, of course, it's Region 10, so they got the Riverine votes.
Yep. So that was my take on it. I just think that people look at him as okay, here's the next here's our hope, because for the past couple of decades things are not getting met. So here he comes, and I think that's where it came from. And don't forget though, Dr. Hyde, even though the Indians, even when you look at the quarantine, those 6 and those regions, they also did not have a big turnout, which is not normal, which means that there are lots of people in those communities who are traditional PPP supporters who are upset with the PPP. Yes. But of course the diehards would come out and vote, and I don't think that people should discount it. And I believe that is why Jagdeo and others are so scared of Azharuddin, because he's got them. And here's the other thing: you see, he's got the money to match them. They tried everything, but he's got the money, for advancing for the next election. And I believe that's what they worry. They're worried that he's gotten the black vote, the Armenian votes, surprisingly, and now there are lots of Indians who did not show up. Why did they not show up? Is because obviously because they don't want to vote for him, but a lot of them will not vote for the Black Party. I believe that was the basic. They will not. They prefer to vote for another party, but he is not really established yet where they can trust him to be their kind of a candidate as an Indian. But they would not vote for a black person, and I think that's what happened. And so,
Yes, on point there, Dr. Adams. But tell us, do you think that it is sustainable? The Mohammed win upsurge, do you think it's sustainable?
And that's the big question. And that is why, every time I get that question, I said here, let's wait and see how, well, expectations are that he will be the opposition leader. And I think and that's where you can tell, or you can judge how is he going to run the opposition, as the opposition leader. How is he going to manage parliament as the opposition leader? Because he is very inexperienced, obviously, and he's got a lot of inexperienced people in his party, even though all of the experience, like yourself and the others, are the third party, if you will, which is the new party. And I don't know, you know much better than I know as to how what type of collaboration or coordination will there be as an opposition? Will there be a well-coordinated opposition with him as the leader? But the one thing, Dr. Hines, the one thing, as they always say, money is the milk of all politics, okay, and elections. And the one thing that he has, it's a lot of money that APNU and the AFC never had. So I guess we're gonna see, and I hold no brief for Azharuddin and his party a win. However, I think the one thing that Jagdeo understands, he knows what I just said there. Money is it. And this is the one guy, if he manages it correctly, and he's got the right people around him, even tapping into the new expertise and resources, he's got the money, and he will have the resources to match up with the PPP. And I think that's the one thing that scares the living daylights out of Mr. Jagdeo. But I think, getting back to your question, I think it's a big unknown, Dr. Hines. But if he manages right and he's got the right people, he's got one of the basic fundamentals, which is money. And if he manages correctly, it could be sustainable. Well, at least for the next election. I think it's the next election that is really gonna between now and the next election. Because if you notice what he did from the day after the election, from based on the reports and on YouTube that I've been seeing, the very next day he was out there campaigning. He was all over the place, Linden and every place else. The very day after the next election, of course, the next big election, consequential election, will be the local government election, and so that's the big question, Dr. Hines.
Talking about the big question, let's fast forward to today. Today, as we notice, he and his father were picked up based on an extradition request from the United States of America. They were went before a magistrate, granted bail, and clearly the matter is going to be in the courts. How does that, in your estimation, affect the speculation that you were making just now about whether it's sustainable or not?
Yeah, it's a big question as to where will this go or end? And of course, unless he waives his right, which I don't think that he will do. I'm sure that he's gonna go right through the court, the process, because now it's become a court process. He's gonna go through the court. He's gonna appeal, and it's who knows how far it's gonna do, but how long that will take. And here's the other thing, Dr. Hines, and I think this here helped him in the election. He is looked upon as a victim. Look, I saw today on the videos that I'm seeing, and I could not believe in such a short space of time the crowd that showed up, which is the same, kind of similar crowd that showed up when they were seizing his car. And I think it helped him in the election because we've got a PPP party that is just a bully to everybody, and people recognize that, and they're resenting it. And again, I don't hold any brief for Mr. Azaruddin or his father, but he is now become a victim of the PPP, and I think it helped him in the election. And we'll see how far the people, his supporters, are going to go to start with. But and again, Dr. Hines, you question the timing of this. You remember, going back to what I just said in terms of fearing this man, the timing of it, the day, well, the working day, because nothing happens on the weekend. Today is Friday. Parliament starts on Monday, right? Am I correct? Was that Monday? That
Monday, yes.
Good. So the timing is kind of suspicious. The day before, and then now it sounds as if you're really trying to make sure that he doesn't go to Parliament, and to taint him, and to even, I think even the bail, maybe they weren't even expecting him to get bail. He could have been, who knows that, but obviously he got bail from the magistrate. So they were probably rolling the dice that he would not be out, which means, I think anyway, I'm not a lawyer or anything, that I don't think he could be elected as the leader of the opposition if he's in remand. I don't think so. But nevertheless, it had, to me, the timing there. But it's a serious matter. But now that he's out, I think, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but just based on the votes, with 16 seats, he's still expected to be elected the leader of the opposition. So, and we see what's gonna happen there. Like I said, this thing, I don't know. The process can take, to me, years. As far as I've been hearing from legal experts, and so that as that time goes by, we'll see what happens. Again, it goes back to how he handles himself at the lead.
But do you think it will take years? I mean, when the Americans wanted Roger Khan, it didn't take years.
Well, I've listened to some legal folks because let's say the hearing starts, and again, Dr. Hines, don't forget, this thing here is political also.
Political, that's
deals that are being made. It could be just a show also to let it appear, from our side here in the US. I don't know, because when you mix the politics with the legal process, who knows? There's always that deal, especially when you're dealing with two separate countries, and who the people, the people who are involved and all this kind of stuff. But I just speaking from some lawyers, they're saying that it could take it could very well take years. Now, okay, who knows? It might just be a few days or weeks. But so it might be
the court could push this matter through within a couple of weeks. Remember, during the election campaign.
That's right. They can, and that's. But then there's the politics that comes in. With the U.S. is how is the U.S. viewing this and looking at it? Is this just to say, well, we're showing that we're not going to allow this? But here's the other question I want to know, Dr. Hines. What has happened? Again, I hold no brief for Azaruddin, but there has to be fairness. What has happened to the PPP folks who also, were sanctioned. Mayor Thomas, for example, and then there were like 9 others, and it's so why is he and his dad the only people who are being treated this way, and the others are not being held accountable? Well, at least right now, and it would have shown more fairness for at least to come up with an explanation. Why is May Thomas not being, and she is a PPP person, heck, she might still be paid by the government of Guyana. So when you look at all these things, you wonder if they really how. So those are the kinds of considerations that you have to look at to figure out where will this go from now on. And like you said, it could be weeks, but some legal folks' minds are telling me it could also be years.
Ordinarily, it can be years. I mean, if the government of Guyana is not forthcoming, remember our boy in Trinidad, the football man, that's been going on for years.
That's the example that the people who brought it to my attention have said exactly the same thing. The guy with FIFA.
Right, but in the Trinidad case, the Trinidad government,
that's correct.
Whether it's PNM or UNC, don't seem inclined to want to extradite him.
That's exactly correct, and that's the difference. That's exactly the difference. Whereas in this case, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. And let me ask you this: Mohammed has said that he's going to sing. Why has he not started to sing?
Well, again, here, but that's the other thing. When I get into the discussion, and the one thing, here is the risk. Now, I'm sure he probably has information, but the information, what he's going to sing, if he sings, he's going to sing and implicate himself. You see what I mean? He can't sing and say, well, it's somebody else. Based on the allegations, if he sings, then he's singing on himself because he can insulate himself from the singing, So if he's got stuff, he's in a bind. He's between a rock and a hard place. Maybe let's say the thing goes through, but if he continues saying that he's innocent of these charges, what is he going to sing and say? He can't sing and say somebody else did these things and he was not connected. If he's going to sing, he's going to have to show what these other people, whoever he wants to sing on, how are they involved with him? And he cannot implicate himself as one of the guilty parties if what he has to sing he decides to. So I think that's the dilemma that he's probably going to end up in.
The dilemma that he's probably going to end up with, we'll have to watch and see. He's out on bail along with his father. And of course, today's Friday, tomorrow is Saturday, the next day is Sunday. We are told that the United States has intelligence people on the ground, and they have been on the ground in Guyana, I understand, for a couple of weeks. The United States are not going to send down their intelligence people here to go back to the United States empty-handed if we know how the United States government operates and how this United States government in particular operates. So this story, as we would say as little children growing up, this story get melody. And we shall wait and see. Let's move backwards now to the story of the bomber, what they're calling now terrorist bomber. And if you note some of the propaganda coming out from the PPP propagandists, is that the bomber is linked to Mohammed because they have sought to stick Venezuela on Mohammed. But as we look at the bomber story and all the inconsistencies, all the things that are not adding up, what's your take on it? I mean, let me just say one thing that is bizarre, and then you can take it from there. If they say this man belongs to some bad gang in Venezuela and could have been an agent of the Venezuelan government, and you are going to place a bomb, you must know that there are going to be surveillance cameras. You must know that you will be picked up. Why if you are acting on behalf of the state, you act so clumsy. But anyhow, your answer.
No, I'm just like you. Now, if let's say you had connection to the Venezuelan government, I'm sure the Venezuelan government is much smarter than that. They these governments they deal yeah, their terrorists are professionals. This man showed up with a big plastic bag, Dr. Hines, and then goes to put it in a garbage can next to the employee sitting right next to the garbage thing to start with. So you can see it's a big amateur. And then when she stopped him, he goes around the corner and just dropped it into some corner. That's not the way professionals operate. Okay, but you know they're making that connection. But who knows? Let me tell you something. There could be all kinds of scenarios that you can develop. First of all, you know that business. I don't know who owns that gas station and why he picked that gas station. What happens if there's bad blood between businesses or that happens, Dr. Hines? And I'm just saying those are also some scenarios that it might be something against the business instead of this whole this thing that they're trying to come this thing they're coming up with now that is connected to this Venezuelan gang and somehow with Azaruddin is involved. And I do not. What would be the motive? What would be the motive for you? That's where you start. What would be the motive for Azaruddin? They hadn't, they're just saying that he might be involved. But I would like them to come up with a motive. But they have no evidence whatsoever to link this man. But again, I think it's all the things that they're trying to do. They're trying to get rid of him by whichever way that they can. Again, I'm not connected to Azaruddin. I hold no brief for him. But if you look at everything objectively, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And this man, it was so immature and stupid the way he operated. He could not have been a professional and having connection to the Venezuelan government. But I can tell you what, from a technical standpoint, which has not been talked about, I think the intent was, again, he doesn't know what he was doing, but could you imagine, do you know under those gas stations that they're tanks with gasoline?
Mm-hmm.
And if they really wanted it, all he had to do, or if let's say that bomb had breached the concrete, if he had put it where a pipe, those pipes that are connected, because what happens, you have these tanks full of gasoline and dieseline at the bottom of the gas station. And so if you can get it to, if he had gone to the pipes that come up from these tanks where you get the gasoline from, and somehow breach those and get that fire down there, that bomb, to get into those gasoline tanks, all hell would have broken loose for blocks upon blocks, with the explosions, what would have been happening. And I think that's what I'm saying. This man could not have been some kind of a big professional working for a government or anybody. I don't buy that. There's something smaller than that he's involved in. Again, I'm only speculating, but I do not believe that he worked for any big established country or some some big.
But clearly, from the utterances of the government, they are hell bent on saying this is a big deal. Yeah. So you ask, what is their motive for treating what is obviously an amateur operation as a big deal? There are lots of questions there. Let's push backwards.
And like I said, I ain't hearing nobody bringing up the scenario. Is there bad blood among businessmen in Guyana? Something like this. Who on that gas station? And I'm just saying if that's their scenario, but that's also a possible scenario.
Yes, that's a possible scenario. That's a possible. But our government is not treating it as that. Our government is treating it as mercenary activity. They're treating it as terrorism, and we have to ask why. Why? And obviously, amateur operation is being treated as terrorism. Let's wait and see.
But Dr. Hines, what's so funny that this has brought out to the Minister of Home Affairs comes out and say, well, everybody now, they're going to keep track of everybody who comes into the country. We never heard anything but this before the election. Now you got to get ID cards and all kinds of. We never heard any of this due diligence on everybody that came into the country before the election. But suddenly this bombing. Now you wonder if I'm not saying the government is involved here, but is this another kind of a scheme to do whatever shenanigans, or is there something there that we're not seeing with this whole ID stuff now that they're proposing? Is it connected somehow?
Is it connected? A few days before the bomber story, we had another bomb, and that was what happened in the legal fraternity at the level of the Chief Justice and the Chancellor of the Judiciary. We know the story. What happened? Do you feel that Justice Cummins was pushed out?
Without question, Dr. Hines. I mean, we are not fools, Dr. Hines. Look, I was even if let's put yourself in the honorable judge's position, and with her name, there's all kinds of speculation as to, wouldn't you have come out and say, if you had voluntarily left, wouldn't you have come out and say, hey, no, there's nothing to it. It's time for me. I want to. There wouldn't have been anything wrong with that. But because if you're not doing that, it would leave some kind of doubts or question, and I would come out and say, no, I voluntarily, this was off of my own will. That lady has not come out and said anything, and with all of the speculation and talk. But we all know, before the elections, Dr. Hines, we saw this, that she was moved out of the way. Then, of course, Justice George was moved up as acting. But this whole gimmick was to get their guy as the Chief Justice. That's the key position. It's not the Chancellor. The key position was the Chief Justice's position. So that's where it started before the election, just in case there were some legal issues during the election. That's where the controllers and so that's the position. It's really not the Chancellor position. But I think what they're doing, they're attempting to box Mr. Norton in, because they put him in between a rock and a hard place. If he says yes, then he's gonna get probably hit from his side, and then if he says no, they're gonna say that he's refusing to approve a black woman. That's what this is about. But I'm glad he's sticking to his gun and say, here, you ignored me when I said from day one I've always been in favor of the two black ladies for the Chancellor and the Chief Justice, and you ignored me. So now why are you coming to ask me when you've changed? You've changed it now. You've changed it. What I approved. So now you're coming to ask me, and he's not agreeing to it. But I think they want to box him in and put him between a rock and a hard place. So yes or no, he cannot win.
That's right. And so we go on and we keep going on in Guyana. Nothing seems to be changing for the better. You know something about engineering and so forth. So we've had our bridge, the Barra Jack Dio Bridge, which has been opened a few weeks ago. Lots of pomp and ceremony. Has the bridges changed anything for the better in terms of transportation? Do you see any big plan? That's the question I think I'm asking here, because you would know that infrastructure has to be part of something larger. not infrastructure for the sake of infrastructure. Are we being unfair in charging the government with just being interested in infrastructure for the sake of infrastructure?
No, you're not being unfair. Those are the facts, and we've talked about it several times in your program, myself and others. The one thing that this government has shown, it does not plan. It just look, they're just hear 'em, scare 'em. Look at this bridge, for example, and this is just the latest of a joke. Build a nice fancy bridge, and then the next day it's chaos at the bridge. You've got the minister of works is standing and directing traffic at the bridge. I mean, it was so hilarious. When you plan something, a big infrastructure like that, you have got to know exactly where the traffic is going, what traffic is. First of all, you have to do, before you put the bridge there, you have to do like a traffic survey to know how many, for months or even a year before that. You set up some traffic surveys to see where the traffic is going, and you put access and egress from the bridge. It was sheer chaos. But even that, look at the other biggest project, the gas to shore project. It's the same exact thing. Now, you remember the last thing you heard in the news, that now they have to settle with a contractor, which is what we predicted, for an extra $100 million, because they put it on foundation that was swamp basically, and they did not do feasibility studies as is required by the contract that is so sanctified. And now they're finding out that the soil that it was built upon was basically swamp. It couldn't take it. The contractor took them to court, and I just read that the contract, I think, was awarded. They said the contract, they had to add an additional $100 million US. So here is this project that started out at $7 to $800 million. Now it's about 2.5 billion US, and it's because there is no planning. So this here is just the latest. This here is just the latest. The show is going. Look, you can't get away from it. So that they could not even put up a lantern post, Dr. Hines. You remember when all the lantern posts be falling down?
Yes.
If you cannot even plan as to how you're gonna have a lantern post fixed into the ground, and it didn't happen with one, it was falling down all over the place. If you cannot even do that, how the heck else could you even run a country or do these big infrastructure projects? So they've established, their gross incompetence and the lack of planning. Well, I can't say the lack of planning, because they don't even know that you.
That's right, Dr. Vincent Adams here on a Friday night. As I told you, I was given some tickets by Sherrod for encroaching on his time. And last night we did well. Tonight we have gone 13 minutes over.
Okay.
Dr. Adams, your closing thoughts, because I don't want your comrade to give me other tickets. He now doesn't have to look for me. I'm seeing him very often.
No. Here's the other, the biggest one of the big news that came out here, which is what we've been talking about, is the World Justice Project has come out with the new ranking for following the rule of law. And you remember we had hammered them before, where I think they were ranked 74 out of 143 countries. Now they're ranked 80 out of 143 countries. So they're slipping. And then of course, they come out and say, well, they're using
data.
Which is the normal BS. So that was the latest thing. And of course, I guess the three senators from the United States have Rutledge was supposed to submit this whole thing about taxes that the Guyana government that the people of Guyana, not the government, that the U.S. people are subsidizing the taxes being paid by Exxon, because they're using the receipts from the government. The government of Guyana is paying Exxon taxes, giving Exxon a receipt for taxes Exxon did not pay. They give them a receipt as if Exxon paid the taxes, and then Exxon brings it to the United States and goes to the IRS and say, here's our receipt, and then they get a credit. So there are three senators, as you know, that are investigating that. And Exxon was supposed to come and explain it the 23rd. So I hadn't heard what the response was to the senator. So those are the things that I had on my plate there.
Dr. Vincent Alexander,
I don't.
sorry, Vincent Adams. Vincent Alexander
Everybody does that.
was last night.
You're
Vincent
really gonna get Vincent Alexander really mad to be mistaken the two of us.
Vincent making his grand return to Politics 101. My brother, thank you very much on a Friday night. Shall see you next week.
Definitely. Thank you, Dr. Haynes.
And of course, it's Friday. All of you would be heading into the weekend. Please remember our course, Introduction to Pan-Africanism, starts tomorrow. I think they're still taking enrollment, so the information is at the bottom of the screen. Please call the number there and enroll for our course, Introduction to Pan-Africanism. It begins tomorrow, 4 to 6, and it will be running for 8 weeks. Introduction to Pan-Africanism. Please call the number at the bottom of the screen and enroll so that you can be part of the beginning of the course tomorrow. For those of you who are not in the course, I'll see you all on Monday morning. Well, I am not sure. It depends on the timing at Parliament. As you know, Parliament is supposed to begin at 2 o'clock. I don't know how early we'll get out of there. But we should be able to get out of there so that we can have our Monday night program. And for those of you who are joining the course, I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a productive weekend. My suspicion is that there are going to be political sparks on the weekend. I think that granting of $150,000 bail to the Mohammed, I think is something just to make them and to make us get into this false sense of security. I think the people have this thing planned out, and they're just proceeding. I think the challenge to the PPP is not to appear to be an obstacle to the rule of law. They want to be an obstacle to the rule of law because that's the way of getting the man out as quickly as possible. You have to flout the rule of law. But you want to do it so that you can be charged with obstructing justice and not engaging in the rule of law. So you arrest him. He goes to before your choice of magistrate. You give him bail, $150,000. If you give Azadin $150,000 bail, you might as well tell any father's watchman, you all go up on your all own. Just go home. Just go home. Don't lodge nothing. Station bail. No station bail. Go along. When you give them $150,000, you got something up your sleeve. And I think I know the PPP, right? So you can't say you didn't pull the men before the court. You can't say they didn't apply for bail and you didn't give them bail. I think between now and you see them Monday afternoon, Parliament, the PPP got the tricks up their sleeve. And I think the Mohammeds are aware of it. They are aware of it. We shall see. Let's see what the weekend holds. Until then, remember, it's always love from our side.